we're having a press announcement today to sort of highlight the voice of community members, parents, students, and teachers who want to give the message that school reform in Chicago is headed in the wrong direction. We want to particularly tell our political leadership, including Mayor Rahm Emanuel, that the direction that this thing is going is bad for students and bad for schools. And then we have some more specific messages from the Board of Education. There are a few issues which have been discussed which we want to try to highlight. In particular, the longer day, which is set for next year, is being introduced and pushed through without adequate funding. We're talking about a $600 to $700 million budget deficit, which will leave our schools with more time to provide education, but less resources to provide that education with. So for example, we're talking about a longer day without resources for art, or music, or world language, or physical education. We also have in Chicago a recent announcement that there will be an 85% cut to schools' capital spending. So at the same time that there's 160 schools without libraries, 98 schools in elementary and middle school without playgrounds, we're talking about cutting $500 million out of the budget, which will provide improvements for those schools. And yet at the same time that we're doing that, we have a recent announcement that there will be 60 new charter schools that will be opening in the next few years. And so we wonder, how can there be $500 million being taken out of school building funds, and yet at the same time 60 new schools being built? The Chicago Teachers Union, for its part, will be rallying with thousands of our members tonight at the Auditorium Theater. I know it's been discussed that we're going to be taking a strike authorization vote. We won't be. That is not true. But what we will be doing is trying to give evidence of the breadth and depth of the sentiment against these school reforms to both to the mayor and to his appointed school board. With me today are a number of school, community, and parent leaders who are going to be talking about, from their own perspective, about what's wrong with the political direction the schools are headed in Chicago. So first, we're going to be hearing from Alex Hollett, who's a teacher at Shields Elementary School. Alex.
Can you say spell your name? Yes, my name's Alexandria Hollett, ALEXANDRIAHOLLETT. And I'm a second grade teacher at James Shields Elementary School in Brighton Park. And I'm here today because I believe that some of the policies and practices that the board has supported are very destructive to our neighborhood schools. And at our school, we're currently being cut in half. And we're here to advocate today to make sure that our students and our staff are put first as we transition to the new academic year.
Thank you, Alex. Next we're going to hear from Marisol Ledesma, who's a student at Kelly High School.
My name is Marisol, M-A-R-I-S-O-L. My last name is Ledesma, L-E-D-E-Z-M-A. What grade are you? I'm a senior. You're at Kelly High School? At Kelly High School. As a graduating student, it is extremely frustrating to know that if a school is likely to close in the next 5 to 10 years, CPS will decide to starve the school, to neglect them. This is not right, as it was said by Tim Colley, the CPS Chief Operating Officer. It is not right that at the same time that these schools are being closed, that other schools are being opened. These charter schools are being opened, and it is not right that this message is being said to the youth of Chicago to be told that their school is going to be closed because it's not good enough, but it's not good enough because they're not given those resources to succeed. They're not provided those resources that is essential to the achievement that the students want, that the schools want to be able to send their students to college so that the youth in Chicago can be successful. So that is what we'll be talking about today. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we're going to hear from Jose Hernandez, who's a local school council leader and a parent.
Good morning. My name is Jose Hernandez. Jose J-O-S-E, Hernandez H-E-R-N-A-N-D-E-Z. I'm here as a concerned parent. We're really worried about class sizes. it's really important for our kids to have the attention of the teacher that is not overwhelmed with a lot of students in a classroom. Also, the second point I want to make is also the school playgrounds. Now with the extended day and recess coming up for all the schools in the city of Chicago, it's really important for the schools to have playgrounds, for the students to be able to come out of the building and have recess. And then lastly, the other point I want to make is all the buildings throughout the neighborhoods don't have air conditioning. With the longer school day and with the summer coming up, it's going to be the hot conditions in the building. It's not conducive for the students to have an academic advance under those conditions. Thank you.
What school are you at, LSU?
Kelly, I was just selected. Kelly.
We'll get you back up for questions if people want to have any follow-up. But next we have Brittany King, who's part of the youth leadership program on restorative justice. This is a program which focuses on CPS's punitive discipline policies, which wind up taking students who need to be in school and putting them out of school. And this is the lack of resources which go towards these programs winds up putting a lot of youth unnecessarily at risk, and making them fight against the school's discipline program, and leads to higher failure rates and higher expulsion rates. And she's going to speak about that.
BRITTANYKING. Where are you a student, Brittany?
I'm here representing the disabilities.
Oh, okay.
I'm here in support of the High Hopes Coalition, and we want three things to happen for us. One, we need a restorative justice practitioner in each CPS school. Next, we need the resources to make a restorative justice practitioner available for life. And then third, we need lower suspension rates for level 2 and level 3 offenses. Then we need CPS to support us on this publicly.
Thank you, Brittany. Lastly, I want to talk a little bit about some of the Chicago Teachers Union issues with a bit more specificity. The outstanding issues between the Chicago Teachers Union and the board really have to do with four things. Two of which are really questions that are generated and made more acute in a lot of ways by the longer day, the proposal around the longer day. And the first of those two issues has to do with staffing for schools in the areas that make our curriculum rich, like art, like music, like physical education. The current agreement with between the Chicago Board of Education and its staff has mandatory staffing formulas in those areas. The board's proposal is to remove those mandatory staffing formulas. They claim that those things are things that it does not have to bargain about. It's not willing to have those guarantees. We want to make them stronger. The board wants to remove them. That's one problem. The second thing obviously has to do with compensation for the people who work in schools in which their work is going to get much harder. School next year is going to be difficult. We're talking about a new core curriculum. We're talking about a new evaluation system in which students' standardized test scores are going to be used to evaluate teachers for the first time. In addition to that, we're talking about a school day that's 15% longer and 20% more instructional time for staff. And yet CPS has offered us a 2% one-time raise, a freeze, and then getting rid of all the lanes and steps and no raises after that unless Chicago teachers are willing to accept differentiated compensation, which is a fancy way to say merit pay. And that's something which our members are extremely set against. Finally, last two things. The union is extremely concerned about smaller classes. We think that small class sizes are critical for the kind of attention that students need to learn well. And the union is concerned about job security and dignity for veteran educators that get bounced out of their schools through no fault of their own because of all the turmoil going on in CPS, and there's been a lot of it. I want to end by saying that there's been a lot of talk in the news today that characterizes negotiations between the CTU and the CPS as having broken down and saying those talks are stalled. That's simply not true. That's erroneous, it's disingenuous, and it's a harmful characterization. We have always said that talks have been productive. They've been characterized by a fruitful discussion of issues. The problem is simply that the political leadership in the city will not move off its basic proposals, which we find harmful to education. This is not a problem of the board and education, the Board of Education and the educators being unwilling to talk. We are willing to talk. This is a problem of unhelpful political forces coming in and trying to force on the public and on teachers and use force to get which they can't which they can't convince people of through persuasion. And that is unhelpful, and it's something that we're going to take a stand against. Thank you.
I feel like we're hearing two different things. So where is the negotiation process at? Is there a threat?
Negotiations are productive. Their talks are producing thoughtful discussions in which both sides listen to each other, but the difficulty is that there's a political block right now based on the big issues, which frankly forces that are beyond the table are coming. That's where the real block is in the negotiations. We're talking a lot. In fact, we have the union's leadership team has been meeting, between half a dozen and 10 hours a week with the board, all the way going through. We're in fact-finding. We've had a series of negotiations over evaluation. There's actually 3 separate sets of negotiations going on right now. So it's not that we're not talking. It's that there's a political block to progress that's getting made.
And what is the political
negotiate if you guys are in fact-finding? Isn't it a matter of waiting until the fact-finding?
No, there's parallel processes. Fact-finding is going on at the same time that negotiations continue.
Can you just be more specific about the block?
Sure, yeah. The political block is that there are these big issues which, frankly, the educators in Chicago find fundamental. And I characterize them as class size, staffing and the resources that go towards longer day, compensation, and job security. And on most of those issues, the board has simply refused to move, saying that it doesn't have any responsibility to have to bargain in good faith over these issues, saying, no, we don't have to even talk about these things.
That sounds like
well, I mean, there's a whole number of things that we are talking about that are productive, and it's not that I'm saying that there's a willingness to talk and work things out, but I'm saying there's a whole series of issues that are critical in which the stop isn't being placed on us by the board or by teachers from the table, but it's being placed on us by a series of forces that we don't control. And so our attempt is to make a public appeal and say, it's time to move. Frankly, the public has weighed in. There's a recent poll that says that by 2-to-1 margin, the parents in Chicago and the public in Chicago trust educators to have solutions to the problems of education. We wish that the political force in the city would get off some of these issues that are blocking us.
At the heart of some of that you're having
Go ahead, Kate. Go ahead.
At the heart of all those issues is money. I assume one of the big things that the board says is we don't have money to lower classes. We don't have money to give a significant raise. That's a real,
but there's
issue.
The board says they do not have money to fund a longer day, and yet at the same time they have a political announcement that says they're going to open 60 new charter schools. That's a political decision. That decision isn't getting driven by the people who sit across from us at the table at the Board of Ed. That's Gates, that's the people who are the head of that's the billionaires and millionaires who are the head of.
That's not a lot of CPS.
They're not going to, look, if they open 60 new charter schools, it's going to take money out of the public schools, hundreds of millions of dollars. I don't know how they're going to build those schools or refurbish them, but the history of that is there's always get refurbished and funded out of public school funds. And we know that. One more thing, which is that, take class size, for example. The board says, oh no, we're going to protect class size. And yet the mayor of the city of Chicago goes in front of the House on a pension subcommittee subject matter hearing and threatens that if they don't get massive cuts in the life savings, the pensions of people who taught their whole life, they're going to send class size to 55. And they come to us and they try to remove the contract language that will keep them from doing it. And so how can they have it both ways? How can they say, how can they come to us and say, if you don't cut your pensions, if you don't gut your life savings, we're going to send class sizes to 55. And by the way, we want the language that would allow us to do it. On the other hand, say, no, we care about class size. There's a contradiction here.
But you're saying that there's still discussions, there's still talking, there's still in fact finding, but you're not ready to law, right? So why all of the attention right now at this point? Are you jumping the gun right now?
We're going to have a mass rally with our members to try to show the breadth and depth of sentiment against these education proposals, which we think are bad for educators and bad for kids. Thank you. We got to wrap up. They're getting ready to the police. Thank you.